So for your assignment, you are going to be creating your own little application. And so I do have an example for you to look at. And the requirements are that you have at least 2 controllers. So you're going to have the home controller, and that is going to have 3 action methods. And you can see that I kind of adjusted the view bag for that. And those 3 action methods obviously are going to have views that come with them. And I made little modifications to those as well, nothing major. Then you do need to create another controller, and I created one called Animals. This second controller needs to have at least 3 action methods as well. So if you look through here, you can see that I actually had 4. I've got a form. Actually, I have a couple different forms that I used in this. And so it does not matter what you're doing in the action methods as long as you have at least 3. One of the controllers should include a parameter that is not named ID. And you can see I handled that by using a form, and you guys are going to be required to use a form, so that requirement should be handled. You need a controller for a form that displays the form if it hasn't been submitted, and some type of confirmation if it has been. Okay, so because we're pulling in things that are not named ID here, you're actually going to be meeting the ID requirement because you do need to have a form. So you can see I've got animal adoption form. That's my action method. This has got the post. So after they submit, this is what they're going to see. And this is what they see initially. You're going to need a model. And so you need to have at least 3 properties in here. Okay, and you don't have to set default values, but I did. And then the form that you're going to be creating in the view should be connected to this. Now, as far as your view requirements go, you need a graphic in one of the views. And I went a little overboard on my graphics, so I have a lot of them. You do not need to have a bunch of graphics. You need at least one, okay? You need to create a new view that uses the layout. And then you need to modify a view so it doesn't use the layout. Okay, so I actually created all sorts of views, although a lot of these are kind of empty. So you can see I have a lot of views, but a lot of them don't have much in them. Okay, and this is my one with the layout of null. So this is not using the layout view. And this happens to be the one where I am pulling in the model. And I am displaying the form. Okay, so it's up to you which one of your views you want. I mean, the confirmation one could be the one that you've got the layout set to null. Totally up to you how you want to do that. So you need a view that doesn't use the layout, and you also need a view that uses a data model and displays a form. So I combined those 2 requirements into one page, which is okay. You guys can combine these however you want as long as you meet these requirements. And then the final requirement, you're going to have to go into layout. And you're going to want to add those action links. And again, updating to Bootstrap 4 in this particular exercise is optional. If you want to keep it on 3, that is okay. If this is something that you think you're going to use as a basis for your final project, then you are going to eventually need to update it to Bootstrap 4. So I would do it right now because you can actually copy what we did in our test company and paste it, and then you'll have that foundation all set. Also, if you are going to use this as a basis for that final project, when you create your project, make sure you turn on authentication, because it is difficult, if not impossible. I'm just going to call this. It's difficult, if not impossible, to add that component after the fact. So MVC, make sure authentication, you change it to individual user. Okay, that's super important. We can add authentication after the fact, but it doesn't work as well as what is built in. Okay, so after you have all of this, okay, then with your project open, make sure that you have the git ignore and git attribute files in your project folder. And you can simply copy those from the MVC test company, paste them into your other folder. Let me get into these folders. So I've already done that, but we've added them to our test company, right? So you can just come in here, select them, Control and C, go into your project you created, and Control and V or right click and paste it. Okay, but you do want them in here. And then you can add them to GitHub. Okay, so if you can't remember how to add to GitHub, watch the video for adding our MVC test company. So it's the same basic procedures. Okay, and if you run into any problems or if you have questions, let me know. And I did include a link to my repository for this particular project, so you can actually see it. Let me quick run it for you. And like I said, this has more than you need. But I did it that way intentionally, so you could maybe get some ideas. Okay, so here it is. And if we go into About, you can see I've got my own little branding thing here. Here's my animal donation form that does not utilize the layout. I submit it, it goes to confirmation. And then this is another little interface that I created where they have to pick the kind of animal they want to learn about, and they submit. And in the controller, it's going to go through a switch and figure out what view to display based on what they have selected. And you can see I haven't really fleshed this out. So it's not very exciting at this point when you pick the animal that you want to learn about. Okay? I have to do more there. Okay? But this does give you some ideas for what you might want to do in your own application. And if you run into problems or have questions, please let me know.